Welcome to another episode of Talking with Kevin and Son and the People You Should Know. This episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Our mission is through the power of our story. We want to uplift, we want to hear your voice, inspire you, share stories and experiences and perspectives using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Our purpose is very simple. We want to create hope, helping other people every single day. My guest today is going to be one of the top 100 people that are in my life that I surround myself with that are living a highly effective life. So I want you to listen and pay attention. So, whatever your objective is, successful people create a framework around the day to day lives that either enhance their lives or sometimes, like my guest today, they pour into others. This podcast will reveal the secrets of a highly effective life. Today's guest will also share through his story simple and doable steps as to how he turned bad habits into good habits, mastering small behaviors that turned out to have big outcomes. Our guest, if open, will also share his life beyond the life as an NBA player. And he will share with both family and friends of how he has now positioned himself long after the game and the lights have gone off. As a professional athlete, we all know that we are judged, criticized, and sometimes condemned, at the same time celebrated just because of the name of the sport. Pick one. At the end of the day, fans forget that no matter what the uniform this human being is wearing, beyond the sport, we are still human beings. And I want you to remember that. Now, growing up, my father told me in order for me to get a college education, I'm one of 13, that I had to run fast and jump high. Mostly in the inner city, our dream and only way out of our neighborhood, and my guest story may be a little different, is that um, you dreamed of being a professional athlete. But the reality is that 946 players that donned the uniform or hit the roster of a Major League Baseball team last year uh, is limited. There are 560 players that made the roster of an NBA roster. 1,006 1,696 players suited up on Sunday on one of the 32 professional football teams. The reality is there are over 5,300 colleges and universities. 107 of those are historically Black colleges. Many of those students are called themselves student athletes. Only a gifted group will ever get a chance to live out that life's dream on the next level. However, today's guest is one of those gifted athletes, and I call a friend. He has made the roster of one of the 560 players who now can say they're an NBA player. He's a superstar friend. He is a gifted father, gifted neighbor. Today's guest grew up in Mount Airy section of Philadelphia. He's homegrown. He is the son of Alfred and Alvin Williams Jr., baby brother to Avina Pete, Doreen Gilman Williams. He has also attended Germantown Academy here in Fort Washington. He has said by his own means that he was an average player. And believe it or not, we have something in common. He played football, but excelled in basketball. Graduated from the big Wildcats, Villanova University, with a degree. Now, I'm going to back this up. He graduated as a student athlete with a degree from Villanova University. He is married with children, which we'll talk about. In 1997, he was drafted 48 by the Portland Trailblazers. And you can correct me if I get any of this information wrong. From 1997 to 1998, and later was traded to Toronto Raptors. In 1998 to 2006, he was one of the best shooting guards and human beings on this planet. And then he got traded to Los Angeles. We'll talk about that later on. For most of our listeners, you may be thinking this episode, we're going to talk about the dream of playing in the NBA. I'm going to disappoint you. There's no secret that playing on the next level provides you with a certain lifestyle, and the game provides you with certain privileges. However, today's show, we want to peel back the layers of what is real life and talk about my friend, Mr. Alvin Leon Williams, professional sports announcer, father, son, brother, public speaker, social activist, director of player development for Toronto Raptors. And I'm going to tell you, he is just a gifted human being. So I want to welcome my friend. And I apologize for the long introduction, but I wanted to make sure I gave him his roses Welcome to the show, Talking with Kevin and Son and the People Should Know. Alvin, my brother, thank you for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Kev. That was a great introduction, man. So no matter how long it was good. It was right on point.
All right. Well, thank you. Just remember when you're doing your next speaking engagement, you need someone to warm up the audience, whatever. I know how to do it. I know how to do it.
I see.
So how's life? It's hot as crap in Philadelphia. Last night, the Knicks and a bunch of your teammates showed what professional basketball's team basketball looks like. Now, I'm a football player, but I'm a sports athlete, so I know what it looks like when you play against a team and you play against another team that just has one or two players. I'm going to tell you that ball moved around last night like it was one of the R&B songs from Smokey Robinson or the Temptations. It had a beat to it, it had a rhythm to it, and swoosh, it was in the net.
Yeah.
So, how did you enjoy the game last night?
No, I enjoyed it, man. When you have two high level teams and the competition, especially this time of the year, the postseason, and the thing about it and what makes it so special is both teams know exactly what the other team's going to do. You play 82 game season, and then you get into this moment. The scouting reports, everything is on point. The coaching staff is at an all-time high. The players, they're prepared. Now the cream is going to rise to the top. And you mentioned basketball is like a musical. It's rhythm behind it, and you start getting that feel, and you start getting that good feeling of a result. So the Knicks, man, they've been playing well all season, man. I'm really proud of the Nova guys with Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, and my man Josh Hart. But but Sixers got my other young buck, Kyle Lowry. He's a Villanova guy, so I feel like the young bucks is jumping on my man Kyle Lowry a little bit. But it's a good, exciting series, and I think the Sixers. I think they can pull one out in New York, coming back here to Philly.
I think so too. I'm from Dayton, Ohio, so I'm an Ohio boy. I will, I know what it's like for the town to cheer you on and then turn against a player because he moved to Los Angeles. So I know how fickle they are. I'm a lifelong Cleveland Browns fan. I know what it's like to have a parade when you only win one
Man.
game after going two seasons. I am friends with the brother that is the to the head coach, but I want to, like I said, I don't want to talk a lot about basketball, but it's going to be hard not to do it because who you are. But I also want to share with young people that have the same dream or have been positioned the same way as my father said, in order to get a secondary education, you had to use your talents to get you to the next level of life. And hopefully that you'll end up in good hands. As a young person, Germantown Academy, um, coming up and growing up, what was that like? And the reason why I'm asking you this question, because I had two young ladies that I had that are they dream of going to the WNBA,
Mhm.
and they went to Agnes Irving School, and they realized they were treated different on the basketball court than they were treated in the classrooms. I don't have to explain the reason why they were treated different in the classrooms and the basketball court, but the basketball courts for two young women of color felt safe. Explain to me, entering Germantown Academy, long before the NBA, long before entering Villanova, what it was like when you started to lace up your shoes in order to enter that school before you hit the court. What was it life like for Alvin Williams?
Oh man, well, it was a whole idea from my mom and dad, and mostly my dad, with his idea of why he sent me to Germantown Academy and why he wanted me to be exposed to a different demographic. Growing up in Mount Airy, predominantly black, and GA predominantly a white school, and it was something I wasn't used to. So my dad always said, these are people, and these are the type of people that you're going to have to interact with in life when you get older. So start getting to develop relationships, start being in uncomfortable situations where you have to get through them and learn how to get through them and maneuver and navigate through them. So I always had family structure, I always had house structure, but going to a school like GA, it provided a different type of structure. It provided a different type of, environment. So it was something where it was long term looking back, it was very helpful, but I had a lot of struggles. I had a lot of challenges going to that school, whether it was through transportation, whether it's through tuition, whether it's through just not knowing how to adjust and adapt to that demographic, feeling like an outcast at times. But I always had my family to come back to. I always was grounded from that standpoint. So that alleviated a lot of the pressures. But then when I started playing sports and excelling in sports, that kind of helped me get to my day to day. I would look forward to getting through the classes and lunch periods and break periods when I had to interact with people. And then I did something that I excelled at, whether it was football or basketball. And then you start developing and making new friends that were more, more like you. Forget the color, but they were more like you. They had the same interests. And I can also say the school of GA, they did a really good job of integrating me. The teachers were really, they were really helpful. So it wasn't that hard of a transition, but it was a hard transition going to school and then coming back into my neighborhood with my homies that, wondering why are you going to an all-white school? Why are you not staying in a school in the neighborhood? Why are you not going to Leeds? Why are you not going to Martin Luther King? Where are we going? You know what I mean? So it was one of those type of conversations that you had to have. So it was some challenges across the board, but for the most part, the biggest challenge was our family structure. A lot of people really had to sacrifice for me to go to that school, and it really influenced and impacted a lot of people's schedules in my household, especially my sisters.
Yeah. I asked you this question because, you and I have had this conversation, and between the two of us, and because there are going to be other athletes that are going to come up in this and have the same opportunity that you and I had, me for football, you for basketball, is that coming back to the neighborhood, your family and friends seems to turn on you, to make you feel like you're different or question why you feel so special. I'm going to ask you this. What's the best moment you spent growing up with your family?
Man, every day, man. Of course you have your struggle, you have your upbringing, but again, we didn't have everything, didn't have a lot, but we had what we needed. And my mom and dad, they really provided that. My dad, he really, he's a strong male figure in the neighborhood. He was one of the my household probably was one of the only households on my block that had a father in it. There's another family, but, it was men around our neighborhood. But my dad, just getting to see, he was a man in the household. So, I mean, we did a lot. We didn't go on family vacations, but we didn't do all the things that you start seeing when you get older. You see some families doing stuff like that, but we were always together. Like whether I had a game, all five of us was there. When my sister had a track meet, we were all there. When we had barbecues, cookouts, all of those type of things. So I can't even pinpoint one moment because we were so close. We were so close. But it's ironic because I think back how I raised my kids and how I communicate with them more. I let them know what's going on in the household. I let them know about finances. I let them know about certain things. Certain things growing up in a Black household is not talked about. You're not talking about money. You're not talking about mom and dad relationships. Some things the kids weren't privy to. But I look back and just realize I was brought up the right way, and I was brought up in a way that making me the productive person that I am today.
When you talk about growing up in a household with mom, dad, family structure intact, and you start to play basketball, you experience other players that are not privileged to the life that you had. Sometimes your teammates are a little jealous of you, envy. Some people pick on you because you're different, and they deal with their own shortcomings by taking it out on you. How did you interact with kids that saw you to be a little different, that called themselves your friend? How did you deal with that?
It wasn't hard. My closest friends, we grew up together, so they all knew. They knew what type of person I was. They knew my family. They knew my dad was a no-nonsense guy. My mom was in the community. Like, they knew all of those things. But it's one of those things where, it's funny. People thought we were like the Huxtables, right? People thought I was like Theo and, mom, pop. But, my dad, because my dad he was a police officer for 27 years in Philadelphia. And then he ended up getting a job for Major League Baseball and part of their security, and worked with the commissioner, close with the commissioner. My mom, she was a seamstress, and then she ended up working at Central High School as serving lunches. So people thought that, our family was a certain way, but we struggled financially. For my dad making that sacrifice to sending me to a private school, everybody thought I went to that private school because of sports and I was getting a scholarship was far from the truth. My sister at the same time was going to college. She was going to Beaver, which now is Arcadia. And my other sister, she was just leaving Temple. So financially, we struggled. Academically, I struggled. My sister started getting a little older, so to take your brother to school or pick your brother up or take him to his game, those days were over. They started dating or hanging out with their friends. So now some internal struggles that we never really had as kids and our parents start arriving. So it was something where we had a lot of internal strife. There's some things going on in the household that wasn't cool. But when we stepped outside that door and we would go to that game or we would go to dinner, we would do something, everyone saw us as a tight unit. But there was a lot of struggles. There was a lot of doubts. There was a lot of situations that could have took my family this way. So again, people from the outside, they may thought or there's a narrative, but if you were close to the house or you were close to me, you understood the challenges and things that we were going through. But all again, it was that sacrifice and that determination that my pop had and his the vision that he had, what he knew, what he wanted for his son. So I didn't really have to deal too much with people said, because nobody really said it to my face, but I wasn't treated differently. We was all on the same plane. We would all hang out the same places, go to the same tournaments. They would come over to the crib. My mom and pop would cook barbecues. We would go over to their family houses. So all my friends, it was still a good environment where they understood what was going on.
I talk many times when I speak, especially when I talk to young people. We always hear the conversation of finding out your why. And what I've learned as an adult, I'm a little bit older than you, that your why is redefined on different levels and different aspects of your life. So you're transitioning and preparing to go from high school, being an okay student. Now, I'll tell you about my being an okay student to give you some. When you say okay student, you were a straight A student compared to me. Did not know I had a learning disability. Learned how to read and write while I was a junior in college. Sports got me through. People start knocking on your door saying they're demanding your gift early on. When did the conversation of, I don't even know if college was part of your vernacular while you were playing your freshman, sophomore, or junior year. I don't know if you have been approached. What's the first time that you heard anyone say, go to the next level and play basketball, be a student athlete? Who is the first person that knocked on your door? The other question I'm going to ask you, and people are going to know, because I've said this openly, and Deion Sanders has supported this, is that what would happen if our talented athletes, both academically and as far as on the field, went to one of the historically Black colleges in 2 years? What will change when it comes to college education? That's the second part of this question. But let me ask you this: the first part, who's the first college or first coach that knocked on your door, and what was the conversation?
I can't remember the first college. As a freshman, I got my first interest in colleges. I remember my freshman year getting letters from Syracuse and some other Big East schools, some local schools. I was always fortunate enough to be around college because my dad was close friends with John Chaney, the head coach, the legendary head coach at Temple University. And I used to go to his basketball camp, him and Sonny Hill, John Chaney basketball camp as a young kid, and Temple players would be around. Although they couldn't express any interest and I was so young, I started getting the feel of being around a college campus, being around a college coach, what the demands were. And, I always played in the league, Sonny Hill League, which was at McGonigal Hall down North Philly on Temple's campus where the Temple Owls played. So I was around the sport. I was around college. But when I actually first started playing, I can't quite remember when I started getting truly recruited, because a lot of times you start realizing those schools that give you letters and they'll just see your name in a publication and say, oh man, he's a 6-foot freshman guard that's starting varsity. But maybe somebody we're looking at in the next 3 or 4 years. And then you start getting handwritten letters. So I would say probably my sophomore year where colleges start expressing some serious interest in just being around more and more, whether you're playing in local leagues and you're playing the tournaments and they would show up. But I was fortunate enough during that time in Philly, we had a lot of great high school players. And one, we were the same age. We came up together, Rasheed Wallace, which all the colleges was looking at Rasheed. So they would come check him out, whether I was playing against him or we were on the same team. They would get a chance to see the rest of us play. So we were in a unique situation because we had probably the best high school player in the country, in our city, right in our backyard. So a lot of schools would get a chance to see us play at an early age. But it was early on when colleges start showing some interest in me and trying to go to their universities.
I want to get this message out to young athletes because now college kids, high school kids are now making money off their image and building their brands, and they're a lot more savvy than what we did. We played the game because we love the game itself. But there's where there's a positive, there's a negative. It's like a magnet. If you were to list three destroyers of dreams for a college athlete, what would they be?
Three destroyers. Well, I will say this. I think money. I think when you start putting the business aspect into the game so early, it takes away that love. It takes away that passion to see if you really enjoy it. Because I think a lot of people, they end up playing the sport for what the sport can provide for them, and that taints it a bit. I think a lot of people, a lack of leadership will taint it as well as a destroyer. If you don't have the right leaders around you and the right people that can set you straight whenever you go off track a bit, not having that structure and that leadership and those people around you that can guide you in the right direction, that's a destroyer as well. And I just think, sometimes it's ourselves. Sometimes it's ourselves. We just don't have the true understanding of what it's all about, what life is all about, what, certain things, and it's having substance, having true substance. A lot of people, again, monetary, they feel like that's their value. Or if they have some notoriety, that's making them more than they are. And a lot of people, I always still say when I first got drafted, my second, third year, the most I've ever been unhappy was when I had the most money in my life. So it was really something where no one else could relate to that feeling. But there's a lot of things inside of a person that can destroy them from within.
You and I have talked about that. Matter of fact, we opened up before we even got in this conversation. We know what money does. It gives you a false sense of security. It
Yep.
creates friendships that you can't validate. It creates relationships, romantic relationships that are not relationships. They're investments in some other's future. So, I'm hoping young players, both male and female athletes, are listening to this knowledge because Alvin is dropping some nuggets. And the reason why we're sharing this because we're setting up so you don't have to walk in our footsteps, even though
Mhm.
we want you to walk in our footsteps. We don't want to have you climb out of a crater that's so far down that you can't see the light of day. So we're sharing that with you. Freshman at Villanova University, you are now a Wildcat through your experience. Big Ten, Big East Conference Championship. I know what it's like the first time going from transition from high school to college. For some reason, the human beings move faster. Some reason the human beings are bigger. Some people look at you in your eyes and they kind of reach down without even saying it. They kind of make you question why you're here. You through your experience, you ever feel like, oh shit, I shouldn't be here, or afraid of anything? Anything ever happened? Your freshman year, what was that like?
Man, and when I talk to kids, and I used to do a lot of training with a couple of my partners, and I used to tell the kids, you want to go to college. Everybody, raise your hand. You want to go to college? Yeah, I want to play ball in college. You want to play ball? Yeah. What division? Division 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. And I tell them that transition from senior year of high school to freshman year of college was the toughest transition in life for me. Now it's two, with my first child being just a regular person, now being a father, those responsibilities, and now living life. Both my parents have passed, so now living life without my parents. That freshman year is the biggest toughest transition. It's times where sometimes I doubted if I belong there. It's times where I didn't want to be there. And, I was fortunate enough again, and I think my parents instilled that in me, surround yourself around people, that are, whether they're like-minded, whether they go on the right track. So I had a guy by the name, very close friend, brother of mine, Jonathan Haynes, and then Jason Lawson, who's also from Philadelphia, was a freshman. Those guys really helped me, because that was the first time where, the coaches are recruiting you, telling you the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then as soon as you step foot on their campus, you're the bottom man on the totem pole. Like, they don't care about you. They're cursing you out. You're great, like everything. So it was one of the things where you really had to check yourself. And again, that's where I talk about what was so helpful with not having the business given to me so early. I loved it. So the love helped me get through it. Like, man, I can't be doubting myself. First time I ever doubted myself from a standpoint of, do I even want to play basketball again, was my freshman year. So I had a great supporting cast. I was fortunate enough as well that I stayed close to home. For me, that was good for me. Staying here close to Philadelphia, Villanova, 20 minutes away. But that first year was the toughest year of my life for a long, long, long time. Like, it was just something where I can't explain. It's something where that if you are a youngster and you're looking and you're transitioning, that's a piece that you really have to be equipped for. And I go back to leadership, and I go back to having people around you that can explain these things, that can talk you and walk you through these things to help you understand that this is part of the process of getting where you want to get to.
And these are the lessons of life.
Yeah,
I was taught, if everyone ran their life the way the sports teaches you, people will be a lot more successful.
for sure.
Brother Alvin, baby
Kev,
brother Alvin.
I tell you this, Kev, like, from academics, socially, athletically, anything else that you could imagine, that freshman year, you're talking about life, it came on my table, on my plate at that moment. Now, I can say this, but my dad and mom sending me to Germantown Academy, it helped me alleviate, again, it helped me prepare a little bit, because it was a college preparatory type of school. It gave us freedom. It showed us how to time manage. Again, the demographic of people in Villanova and Germantown Academy is very, very similar. It's a small private school. So my transition, so to speak, wasn't that bad from high school to college, but it was more on the athletic side. It was more on the social side. It was more on, like, just the demands. Like, it was everything that GA provided, it was just elevated and more demand about 10 more times in college. But it was very tough. But you made a great point, because it's a part of life. And when I have my challenges in life today, I always reflect back to those moments that helped me get through, or just see how I navigated that.
My Uncle Bill, the late William Daniels, was a big influence in my life. And I know, as a reporter, you're not supposed to say much, whatever, but I need to set this up, and I set this up right. He told me one thing that I've remembered to this day. He says, don't feed your distractions. And at that time, he told me that girls will kill your dream unless they have a dream of their own. As a player, once you put on that uniform, once you show up, either on the football field, the hard field, the court, or baseball diamond, whatever sports may be, you become a different type of individual. You look different to a different individual. How did you balance out your social life and the game, and then as being a student? So when I say, how did you not feed your distractions, or did you?
No, that's the one thing. Again, my parents were strict. They were strict from a standpoint of, they paid attention to what I was doing. They would have some type of pulse of where I was going, unless I lied. And as a kid, I done lied to them 1,000 times, saying I was going to go somewhere else. And I think, and it comes back to you, because you got your own children now, and you're like, damn, that's me. And times are different now, but I have myself in some situations, man, that I'm fortunate to still be here, and be here living, and where I made a wrong decision, but I got away with it. And I didn't, once I got to college, again, I had teammates and I had especially John Haynes and Jason Lawson that we all pretty much, we understood what we were there for. We understood the purpose. We all had the same passion. So I really didn't have anything, and I didn't feed my distractions as much. And I had an awareness about myself. I knew who I was. I didn't care if I scored 20 points in a game. I'm gonna walk around campus the same as I walked around as if I didn't score or play at all that game. I didn't let anything or any of those things build me up to something that I really wasn't, and I knew I wasn't. So again, my foundation and my upbringing really helped me to really maneuver through these challenges. So to a degree, I mean, some parts elevated more even when I got past college. But I had a guy by the name of my old head, Mr. Kitchen, and he would always tell me something very similar. He's like, know your distractions, know your distractions, know what they are, and stay away from them. Right, and that was something that I always made sure I did.
And that's the thing when you made a very valid point. The old heads were always pouring into you the same way you are now one of those old heads. I watch you in
Yeah.
some of your interviews and going back to Villanova, you have been pouring into other people because of the lessons of life that you've learned. So now you're one of us now, one of the old heads. I'm a little older than you. Quick question: as a player, um, how did you react to being benched? I mean, I'm going to tell you, I've never been in a situation until I got to college that I wasn't a starter.
Yeah, yeah.
How did it feel to being benched? Because the reason why I'm saying this, because there are a lot of individuals that are going to reach the college level at some point that have been star receivers, been shooting guards, and the stars on there, and a coach is going to see them in a different position, and they're going to resist it, saying, I should have went to another school. Now the portal's wide open. If you can't have your way, you don't sit on the bench anymore. You go to someone that's going to use your talents for a year or two trying to get a championship, but they won't end up like Alvin Williams with a college degree and an opportunity to have 4 years of experience. They're going to spend 2 years and cross their fingers, and hopefully they can enter the draft. How did it feel, and how did you deal with sitting on the bench?
I mean, it's hard, but it's something. Again, since I was young, those things happen, right? Getting benched, not playing well. Then you have the politics where somebody's more well known than you are, and they're going to get denied. And I got the benefit sometimes in my situations where I was more known than somebody, and they might have been a little better than me or playing better than me, but I was on the floor playing. But that's part of it. But I didn't feel great. Sometimes you felt like, I'm gonna go to a different situation. That's why I don't fault the kids so much when they say they're going to transfer and do all of the things, because as a kid, you're going to try to find an easier situation or a better situation. But the thing about a kid, they don't know what the better situation is. That's why I always put the onus on the older guys, on the old head, because you got to have that type of information. You got to emphasize the importance and what you can take away from getting benched. It's funny. I just had a conversation with a very close friend of mine. He played Division I basketball. I won't throw his name, won't throw him under the bus, because it's something that he said to me before. And I get what he's saying when he's like, you know what? I wish when I was in college, I was less coachable. I wish I didn't agree with everything and try to do everything the coach told me to do, because I ended up falling into the system and I didn't maximize my talents and all of these things. And I heard him say this a few times, and I was like, I hear you say things like you wish you weren't coachable, which is asinine to me. I never even that
Right.
I would never even tell a kid anything like that. But what people never say, I wish I worked on myself more. I wish I worked on my game more. I wish that I did this. I wish that I sacrificed more. I wish that, because no one really puts themselves in that situation. It's everyone else's fault. So when I got benched, I had to realize, to check myself. What am I going to do to get off the bench? What am I going to do to get back in the lineup or crack the lineup? But I knew one thing, I've always had to stay consistent. The consistent part of me was always my work ethic. I would go in the gym at 12 o'clock at night when people are out. I knew people were partying. I knew I would listen to the radio and see who's having a party, and they're theming the party after them. And me and my buddy Katino Mobley, who you met also, and he's in LA now, Rashid Wiles, a bunch of us would go to the gym 12 o'clock at night because we knew that was the time we were going to get better. So that was a mentality that I took with myself. College, pros, today, how do I get better? And it's all about the work. So I never blame the situation. I never blame the politics. I never blame favoritism. I never blame my shortcomings. I got to figure out how I'm gonna get through this. And that's what getting benched early on taught me. And I got benched from every element of my career. Only time I didn't get benched was in high school, but in high school leagues and my high school years, there were some teams that I didn't play as much. College, I got benched. Pros, I got benched. Pros, I got cut. I got waived. I got everything. But it was always, I enjoyed the game so much, and I had to figure out how I was going to keep improving. And that was strictly from work ethic.
All right. And you said two things, work ethic and consistency. There was a young man that I personally take responsibility for that took him from football to basketball. A young man by the name, and he's no longer with us, Dwight Anderson. At that time, growing up, I'm a little older than you. I'm 65 years of age.
You look
Um,
good. I tell you that. I
thank
need
you.
the serum. I
All
need the
right,
serum.
all right, all right. Well, I'll tell you the secret off campus is this real never chased women, never did drugs, and went to bed early. I was one of those kids, and my brothers and sisters will tell you I followed the rules. And this leads into the next question. When you talk about work ethic, Dwight Anderson used to get up in the middle of the night, and this used to be this light, and they put this. We grew up in a poor neighborhood, and they put a basketball rim on the telephone pole, and he
Mhm.
would shoot 100 buckets, and he would play out every single. In Dayton, Ohio, they said he would have been the original Michael Jordan, except for when he got to Kentucky, he got introduced to a white powder substance, and it took over his life and cost him his life. One of the best athletes that came out of Dayton, Ohio. But I also knew that me as an athlete, I had people that always had my back, even though that I was doing some things, and we all do it as athletes. We push those buttons, hoping that we never get caught. Who's that go-to person for you that you kind of poured in? The days that you had doubts, the days you were doing things, and you just said, "I don't know." Did you have anyone on the college level that was your mentor that poured into you, that was always there and told you the truth? That's the key thing with a mentor. They've got to be honest. Who is that person?
Um, I didn't have one like a person. Again, my family. Like
All
a
right.
lot. Again, I was very fortunate because it was my family, and coming from situations where you don't have that strong family structure, or you might not have that dad in the house, and you might have to rely on or lean on somebody outside the house for financial, for protection, whatever it was. So when it's time, those are the people you're going to go back to, right or wrong, however you need to, whatever you need to do to get through. I had my dad, and my dad and I, as close as we were, we didn't talk a lot. It was more like, a nonverbal communication. But I always knew if it hit the fan, then that's what I had to do. So just knowing my dad presence, if I was having a tough time, I knew, you know what, I'm not gonna go talk to my dad. This is what I need to do. Check yourself. I didn't have to use an excuse. I couldn't use an excuse because I couldn't take excuses to him. So I had my dad, but my dad would introduce me to, again, like a guy by the name of Reggie Kitchen. Reggie Kitchen was somebody that helped me train, but he would always drop jewels on me. The most important times we had was outside of the gym when we were leaving, grabbing water and just talking about life. And I had another guy by the name of John Arnett. As I got older, he worked out a lot of players here in Philadelphia, but his training, I've never seen him shoot a basketball in my life, but his training, a lot of it was life related. He would talk about, why are you dribbling to 3 or 4 people? Why are you going out of control? Why are you speeding? He said, if you're walking down the street and there's 3 or 4 people that you don't know, are you going to go through them? Or are you going to go back up, go around, or find a different option? He would say things like that through the course of our teaching. So I did have a lot of men around that will hold us accountable, but they were responsible. And the biggest thing, we talk about being an old head and a mentor, you knew they didn't want anything from you. So everything that you're doing, everything that they're doing is pure. I had a bunch of coaches. I had Coach Cal Lewis, who was very young, John Chaney and Sonny Hill. I had Kevin Rockman. I had these guys that really was around. And my dad put me in these environments. They put me in these environments because he trusts them, and he trusts them to be men that will echo the same things and the same upbringing that I already had.
All right. Last week, NFL draft.
Yeah.
Major NFL, NBA draft just happened a month ago. Major League Baseball draft happened a month ago. 24 hours before you're going to be drafted, going from college to the pros. There's a different mindset on understanding that on Wednesday, you're going from a tough life to a dream life. Your family and friends are all surrounded you. People that didn't know are now related to you. Friends that weren't friends with you know you intimately, like they've been around you all your life. Now, let me ask you 24 hours before, in the mindset of Alvin Leon Williams, the night before, are you cashing the check, investing the check, or are you shitting in your shorts, if I can say that?
Yeah, you can say, you definitely said it, because that's what I was doing. I probably, because it was uncertain. I wasn't a first round guaranteed lock. So once you're not a first round guaranteed lock, everything else is non-guaranteed. So I didn't know if I was going to get drafted at all. I didn't know if I was going to get. I didn't know what was going on. So yeah, but I was just so excited. Like my dream, because again, I didn't think that making the NBA was a true reality until about my junior year in college. So all these years that I've been playing ball, I just played because I loved it. I love the competition. My closest friends all played. We all played sports together. So it was just something that it was seamless. It was seamless to travel anywhere and play, compete. And when I got to college, that's when you start seeing a shift of, do you truly love it? Which I did, but you just saw a different aspect of it. So up until my junior year, I wasn't expecting anything regarding the NBA. My major was elementary education. I was looking to, maybe I was going to be a teacher, but I worked to be an NBA player. But that night before, man, I was scared to death. That day, I played in a summer league game, because I wasn't, again, I didn't go to the draft. I came and cut my grass. I was trying to do everything to distract myself. And then when my name finally got called, it turned from tears to, tears of sadness, because I didn't think I was going to get drafted. It was 48th. So it was only about 11 more picks before it was all over. But I was shitting in my pants. I was shitting in my pants, but I was excited. I was excited because it was something, again, that I know I had an opportunity to fulfill a lifelong dream.
All right, this is going to be real quick. I'm going to throw. You are now an NBA player. You are now cheered and admired. You're on the posters of every little boy throughout the country wanting to be like you. You're a family favorite. You're the best uncle, the best cousin, the best friend. I'm gonna throw out a couple of names. And now that you're wearing the uniform and you're on the same court as many of the people that you watched in the championships years before. So I'm gonna say best time, worst time. Kenny Anderson,
Oh man, best time,
Stacey Ogman,
best time.
Lonnie Baxter.
Lonnie was good. That was all those best time. Best,
All right,
even though our team stunk. Me and Lonnie, our team stunk, but it was a good time.
Vince Carter,
Great time. Great time.
um, Antonio Davis,
Great time.
Charles Barkley.
Oakley.
Oakley, I'm sorry. Why did I say
Yeah,
Charles
yeah.
Barkley?
Yeah,
Right.
don't get those mixed up. They got a
Yeah,
little internal beef. Don't get that. But yeah, great time. Like those
great.
times, Kev, and not to mess up your question, like, again, that's the NBA, but those guys, those are all guys I looked up to. I mean, I didn't look up to Vince because I was older than Vince, but I got a chance to play against Vince in college. But the person that he is, Lonnie Baxter was a little younger than me as well. But all those dudes, man, that was a dream come true, Kev. When you can sit in the locker room and hear a story from Charles Oakley, or hear a story from Antonio Davis, Stacey Augmon, Kenny Anderson, then like we had Muggsy Bogues, Dee Brown. Like my Toronto years, man, that was just, these guys played in the 80s. So
Right.
I watched guys that they were teammates of Larry Bird. Dee Brown was a teammate of Larry Bird. Charles Oakley was a teammate of Michael Jordan. Antonio Davis, teammate of Reggie Miller. Like I'm hearing other types of stories that as a kid, I could only imagine. So sometimes I sit and tell my family and friends some stories that I heard third hand or second hand. And it was all those times were great times, man, from those. And those are the parts that I missed the most, being around my former teammates.
All right. You mind if I get personal a little bit? Because we're going to wrap up a little bit. If I were to ask your wife and kids after basketball to describe Leon or Alvin Leon Williams as a husband, what would your wife, how would she describe you after basketball? And I'm going to ask you to answer the same question um, for your kids. How would they describe you if they're talking about dad?
Well, the kids, you know what? It's hard. I try to be everything for them, and I know I can't. But
Mhm.
my biggest thing is being present. I think they would tell you I'm fun. They would tell you that I'm lighthearted. They would tell you that I do have a seriousness behind me when it comes to when it's time to be serious. But I think
Mhm.
for the most part, I think they enjoy. I think they enjoy having me as a father. My wife, it's so much history there, right? It's so much history. Getting to know, we met each other. I was 20, she was 19 or 21, 20, and through a lot. Been through a lot. Been through college. Been through not having much to gaining other things, and there's a lot of history there. So every day there's layers to unpack. Any moment it could go left, any moment it can go right, right? But it's one of those things where you talk about sacrifice and you talk about, the bigger picture. And the one thing I can say, and I think she would say, is that I'm not the same person as I was when I was 20, 25, 30. Now I'm about to be 50. So that's some of the things too. And you start realizing a lot of people around you, they can't accept the fact that you are changing. And it's just one of those things where sometimes you would wish that people around you could accept your change, especially when it's intentional and you're trying to change for the better and you try to change, in transition in life. But sometimes you can't. You're on your own timetable. So I think a lot of people just tell you that I'm being the best version of myself that I can be, and I exercise a lot of patience, and I'm sure everyone else around me, they exercise a lot of patience as well.
That's all right. So I'm going to ask for your help, and I want to thank you for coming on in advance. I'm about to embark. I started my podcast because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to show people through media, freedom of speech. I wanted to tell our stories. I wanted to showcase people that we should know that are giving back, that will never get the recognition, never make national television, and so forth. So recently, I've committed to teaching 6 students from a freshman year to their senior year at Cheyney University. We're trying to save Cheyney University, the first historically Black college. And they're going to learn how to do podcasts. They're going to learn how to set up an interview. They're going to learn how to ask questions that mean something to the listener. And they're going to know what it's like to be able to produce a quality product consistently for the next four years. I'm going to ask you, all right, even though you didn't attend a historically Black college. There are many children out there that can't afford to go to a Villanova, can't go to Ohio State, whatever, that can still get a quality education from one of the 107 universities. I would like for you to create an atmosphere and a responsibility as part of being media and being a part of the Black media. To my 6 students at Cheyney University, what advice would you give them?
Um, with the media, it seems like the media is changing, right? The media is changing the landscape of it, and I look at it from a sports side of sports media. You're starting to see a lot of athletes, current athletes, they are taking over some media, right? They're controlling the narrative. But I think a lot of it comes down to that you mentioned, the audience, identifying your audience, identifying where you want the message to go to so it can be impactful. The challenge is a lot of people now I see from the media side, they do things called clickbait, where they can monetize it and they can get attention. But it's actually what do you really want from it? Like what's your makeup? What cloth are you cut from? Do you want to do stuff just to get a knee-jerk reaction, or you really want to have something that's going to be sustainable and going to create an impactful legacy? So I think that's pretty much identifying who you want to impact, how you want to impact them, and then you have your own strategies. You have your own strategy. It's going to take a lot of research. It's going to take a lot of deep diving to get true meaningful interviews and meaningful conversations. So I mean, any way I could help or anything that I could do, provide any resource that I could provide, I would love to be able to do that for what you have going on, because it is important. Because I think we've seen in the past, most of the media, the narrative is coming from one demographic. It's coming from a certain demographic, whether it's the white media or whatever it is. But I think it's very important for us to have different versions, different views, different opinions, different type of conversations from all different type of people, because it's never just one-sided.
Well, Alvin, I hate to tell you this. I'm going to call you on your offer to help, and I know you're committed. I surround myself with people that have a high call to action. I got two more questions to ask. Throughout your lifetime, you've learned lessons of life, and when you're being featured on this podcast as one of the top 100 people that are living a highly effective life. I'm not talking about secrets to success. I'm talking about life lessons itself. If you were to list, and for the people to listen, the things that are important to living an effective life, not for profit, but an effective life, what would that list look like and why?
I think now that I'm 50, health. I think really researching and focusing on health. Because I think, once again, internally, if you're not where you need to be, it's going to be hard to put that type of energy out, that type of information out to the others. And I look at myself now really focusing on health, because I want to be here in a healthy life for my kids. And you never know what life is going to bring to you, but the health is something really important. Learning, gathering more information about what maintains and what you can do to be a healthy person. The other piece is, you talked about, is surrounding yourself. I think surrounding yourself around not just influential people from the outside, intelligent people, people that have something going on, some people that have substance, have a passion that you could feed off of. You're going to feed off the energy that's coming your way. If the energy is not good, that can eat you away. That could take you apart. So I think just identifying and surrounding yourself around those type of people that's providing this platform for you to grow, and not trying to be the smartest or trying to be the biggest and baddest person in the room. You want to be vulnerable enough where you're open to information, you're open to conversation, you're open to being set straight. And I think that's the other piece, the vulnerability. I think it's okay for you to say, I don't know. I think it's okay for you to say, I'm not all right. I think it's okay to say, you know what, I don't have the money that I used to have, or so whatever that is, so you can get past that obstacle and keep pushing forward. So there's a few things, but I think, learning to be vulnerable, who you're surrounding yourself with, and just making sure you concentrate on your health. Because I think that health, that brain health, that gut health, those things can help you continue to make the right decisions, the proper decisions at the right time.
All right. So real quick, for our listeners and for people that want to have your presence, to listen to your story, like I mentioned early on at the top of the show, you are a paid, I would say, inspirational speaker. I won't life speaker. I won't say motivational speaker, because I have a certain feeling about motivation. I'm a firm believer that motivation comes with being uncomfortable in a situation and you wanting to change. So that's my version of motivation. And I think both of us have been motivated because we have been uncomfortable until we put ourselves in a position where we're comfortable. And now that we're men, we're comfortable as men and citizens. So let me ask you this one question. Well, let me go back. How do people get in touch with you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have any social media platform. I got a Twitter thing. Kev, you know what? I'm really low key. Um, I've
I'm gonna
always
t-
been this
I'm
way.
gonna tell people if they want to hire you and they don't know how to get in touch with you, I'm gonna say go to info@rmkproductions.org and request for Alvin Leon Williams to
Yep.
come and speak. And we'll tell you what the ins and outs and how to pay for him to get there and what you want him to speak about, and he will tell you the truth. Just be prepared when you hire him. He is going to tell you the truth, the reality of life,
True.
the reality of being successful in business, and reality of you living up and standing by your word and your purpose. So you can get in touch with him through there. I've always asked this question of 90% of the people that have been on here, and I know the ask is going to be big for you. And my parents have always taught me to surround myself with people that have a high call to action. They're, my friends, just like you, you've already committed and proved an example. They don't drive by an accident, they stop to help. Since I've started this show, I've had 5 people that have asked this question, and total strangers have come out of the woodwork in order to have people address and give them their ask. So if you had one ask, and it doesn't have to be one, I just put it out there. One thing you like to put out into the world that you like to make different or like to be part of, or whatever the case may be, what would that ask, ASK, be? Alvin Williams.
Mm. What would the ask be? You know what? It's hard. And I think it goes all the way back to my core. I've never really asked for anything. So it's hard for me to say what an ask would be, but I do some of the information and some of the people I talk to, I would love for it to be received in a way where they could understand that I'm pure. And I have no agendas behind anything that I offer. I don't offer someone anything just to get something back in return. Information, monetary, physical, anything like that. It's just always about really trying to help. So I really like to try to help young student athletes. And this landscape in the world today with, we talk about NIL, and so you see a lot of things that's different from our generation when we grew up. But I think there's a foundation that still should be there from just being a human being and how you conduct yourself. And I think when I do talk to people, I've always talked about that financial wellness, understanding your finances, because that's something you're always going to have to do. And I always talk about family dynamics. I always talk about, because when you get to a certain point, and we talked about it to a degree, your family sometimes can change on you.
Yep. And sometimes they let you down, and it's hard to recover and get back up from that.
It's hard, man. It's hard, and it messes with you psychologically, and it messes with other relationships that you have. And when you don't have certain relationships, you can start leaning on other things. That could be drugs, that could be alcohol, that could be women, that could be a lot of things if you don't have that strong sense of what a relationship truly is.
So
Okay.
I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's much appreciated. You giving us a lot of information.
Thank
Um,
you.
I
Thanks for
think
having
no problem. I think the conversation we have is going to at least change one person's life, and I appreciate you being open. Hopefully, I lived up since you're a professional sports announcer. I've lived up and I carried the ball well. I didn't disappoint you as a
man.
friend.
You did a great job. Just your questions and the honesty behind it and the intention behind them. So when I know sometimes when I've done interviews, it's kind of like some of the questions are scripted because people want to put a certain narrative out there. And a lot of times it's not always in the best light for the athlete. But when you really make that connection, which we do have a connection, a lot of similarities, it's always the recipe for excellence.
Yeah, well, one thing that I've committed to, I am not throwing any of my people under the bus. And if I can't do anything positive, I don't do it. Now, I do want to ask a question before I ask you to do your opening for the teaser. How come you don't have a book?
I just never I never really dove into that. I thought about it's two times I thought about a book because a lot of times you hear some of my story, but a lot of times you hear the story of the the athlete that didn't have the father around that came up in a certain environment. And then you don't really hear the athlete who didn't come up like that, who had a father around, went to private school, grew up in the middle class. So it's a different approach, it's a different pathway, it's a different mindset that you have to have. And I thought about that. It was really going to highlight my family and my structure and what that looked like. But still, at the same time, is a lot of similarities from challenges as well. So I thought about that, but then I dropped through that thought a little bit. But it's something that I consider here and there.
I think you should do that because you just said, if you and I ever get on the stage together, our lives and our example, except for you had a longer career than I did, they run parallel. I didn't have a father that was present in my life. I had grandparents that raised me. I didn't have a mother that was in my life, but family, was important. I love my family. As dysfunctional as they are, they're the most entertaining group of people, and they've always had my back. Even though I had issues with one of my siblings because of my success, I had a brother, I still have a brother that was probably he could have been pro anything. He was gifted, but he chose the streets over the gift that God had gave him. I struggled to be in the that little starlight in my dad's eye, but he was everything and anything to my father. Great athlete. And when we finally came to terms 12 months ago, he said, "You think you're better than me?" And he had said this to me 4 other times, and it hurt me. It cut me to the quake of my soul. And I finally owned up to him. I said, "You know something? I am." I said, "Because you were everything I wanted to be, and you dropped the ball. You were
Hmm.
supposed to pave the way for me, for it to be easier, and you took the easier route, which made it harder for me to be who I am today." I said,
Hmm.
"Yeah, I'm better than you because you gave up on the dream. All right. I
Hmm.
fought for the dream." So,
Right.
you know, this is the reason why we should have, you look at Tony Robbins and all those other speakers that get together with all the other white speakers. We need to have a audience that we get the chance to let our young people see us as we are right now, to share our stories, to say, you know something, you can do this. You
Yep.
can't overcome growing up without a mom and dad. It's not an excuse. It's just one of those hurdles and those challenges in life that you've got to overcome.
Yep.
And the only way you're going to overcome is to leave some stuff behind you. And sometimes when you leave stuff behind you, you leave family members and friends behind you because you can't get ahead when someone else is dragging their feet on their dream, but they want to ride on yours.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
So
100% correct.
so with that said, I am definitely going to add you to my list along with Billy Owens and some other people. LeBron and some other people are getting together and trying to save HBCUs and doing some things. We need the voices and the faces because, when you're famous like you guys are, you guys draw a crowd. I get people to listen, but you guys get people to show up. We need to collectively do these things together as Black men and women. I'm trying to get in touch with Dawn Staley. I would love to have her on here because of what she's done for the face of women in sports.
Hmm.
So I have a wish list of people, but I only want people on my platform that are open to giving back. Their cups are already full. We need to start filling other people's cups and provide them with an opportunity to give them the tools in order for them to get to a level that they can have a life themselves and then give back. So
Yep.
with that said, ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to thank my brother, Alvin Leon Williams. Um, he's a gift to this world. Not only is he a standout NBA player, retired, he is an outstanding human being, sports announcer, entrepreneur, teacher, father, and friend. I want to thank you for coming on, talking with Kevin and Son. Um, and for those of you, if you like what you've heard, I will tell you, follow me, subscribe. If you're a person with a high call to action, if you're a person that instead of driving by an accident, you stop to help, then I want you to subscribe. For those of you that are what I call normal people and trying to find your place in life, I want you to listen and share this podcast with someone that you think you can help. If you'd like to be a guest on this show, go to info@rmkproductions.org. If you want to share this podcast, go to our YouTube page at RMK Productions and Network and, go ahead and share it. So with that said, Alvin, thank you. Thank you for this candid and very personal connection and conversation and sharing this. And for my listeners, I appreciate you twofold. Find 1,000 reasons to be kind to someone. As my grandfather always said, when you get to a point in life that you can help someone, it is your duty to do so. Reach one, teach one. And with that said, we'll fade to black and we're out.